Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today I'm taking you to the Great League, where a trainer climbed to unbelievable leaderboard heights, top 50 in the world, with a level 50 Cetoddle. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, the Mega Junko, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Cetoddle, it's definitely on the spicier side of things. It's anti-meta, so this is not a Pokemon that I would personally recommend if you're looking to rank up and gain some elo, but this trainer was able to put it to devastatingly effective use, pairing it up with a Galarian Corsola and a Stunfisk. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, Cetoddle finds a target as it leads into Stunfisk. The Stunfisk is not switching out, so it appears that they are pretty weak to this Cetoddle. Maybe they have a flying type in the back, as that's a pretty common pairing. Stunfisk often is paired with Flyers because Flyers do a great job at defeating the Mud Slappers. Avalanche lands devastating damage, safe switch into the Dugong from the opponent, and that will be answered with Unova Stunfisk. Stunfisk will get the strike first, going for the discharge. Discharge is a very weak attack, but Dugong will still put up the shield because it's going to get to lower Stunfisk's attack immediately thanks to that Icy Wind. Stunfisk farming up, throwing 4 and the move. This discharge still going to be super effective, but now suddenly not nearly as threatening. Stunfisk would have made a last second discharge, and that forces the Dugong to throw an Icy Wind, and now in comes Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola is going to look for a full farm down. Dugong will get to the Icy Wind, but Icy Wind not a particularly threatening attack. There's the switch out, and there's the flyer we were expecting to see. It's Furret in the back, and Cetoddle. Its Avalanche gets shielded, but Furret is not going to be able to peck down Cetoddle. Shielding up the Drill Peck, just needs to make it to the Avalanche. Cetoddle gets there, and that's going to be good night Furret, as Avalanche will easily pick up the KO. All that's left is a very low health Dugong and a Stunfisk. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Things getting even better in the next match, leading Cetoddle into Altaria. They save switch into a Shadow Cradily, and they are so weak to ice, my goodness. Opponent is going to be shielding up that Avalanche and then immediately firing off the Rock Tomb. Cetoddle does have the pacing advantage here. Cetoddle going to overfarm to the max, playing to the CMP Tide to their next Rock Tomb. This Avalanche is going to connect, and the opponent's debuff does not save them. In comes a Crocalore. What is that doing here? When I saw the mono fire typing, I was assuming it was going to be a Kanto Ninetales, maybe a Typhlosion, anything but a Crocalore. I don't know what a Crocalore is doing here, but I guess the answer is probably losing to a Corsola. Stunfisk gets to fire off discharge after discharge. Discharge, not a great attack, but Stunfisk gets to it so quickly that it will add up. The Altaria also went for a bit of a confusing bait. Sky attacking when Flamethrower is honestly not that much more expensive. The discharge lands, Altaria will get KO'd, in comes Crocalore, and there's the switch to Galarian Corsola. The biggest thing Corsola has going for it is going to be the fast move pressure. Crocalore does have Crunch, and they're going to get to fire off Crunch number 2. Corsola just needs to farm this Crocalore into a range where the loaded energy on the Cetoddle will be enough to pick up the knockout. So that's exactly what Corsola is going to do. Corsola goes for the Nightshade. Nightshade is going to grab the shield. They're forced to throw a move, as the Corsola would have made it to a Nightshade otherwise. And now in comes Cetoddle. Cetoddle gets to fire off the Avalanche. It's resisted, but it's just easily more than enough damage. Down goes Crocalore, and that's going to be a win. Picking up a very neutral lead in the next match, Cetoddle versus Furret. Furret, will they go for the Swift or the Trailblaze? They're opting to just go straight Swift. Now we'll get to see the bulk on Cetoddle. It looks like Cetoddle can actually hang on and survive 2 Swifts. There's a safe switch into Lantern, banking so much energy on the Cetoddle, and now out comes Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola more than happy to absorb whatever the Lantern throws. Lantern will go for the harder hitting Thunderbolt. Safe switching a Spark Lantern is absolutely wild to me, as it feels like it can get punished in so many different ways. Lantern goes for the Surf. It will not be enough to take the knockout, and Corsola will now go for the Power Gem, as Power Gem will cover for a potential catch. Power Gem will pick up the knockout. In comes the Furret, and Furret will immediately be answered with the Avalanche. Avalanche is going to connect. That's big damage. In comes Talonflame. Cetoddle has the Avalanche, baiting with the Body Slam, hoping for the shield. Getting the shield from the opponent, Cetoddle will make one final charge attack, and Body Slam will do some valuable chip damage onto the Talonflame. And now in comes the Stunfisk. The opponent with that Lantern save switch was trying to bait out the Stunfisk, but choosing to save that Stunfisk for the endgame proves to be a wise decision. Stunfisk will get to fire off this discharge. Discharge shielded up by the Talonflame. Talonflame, there's just no way out for them, unfortunately, as the Stunfisk should be able to manage its energy well enough to take home this win. I really like the decision to throw one Thunder Shock in the move, so that way the boosted Incinerate will not land. And now back in comes the Furret, and Furret should get knocked out by the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb does more damage neutrally than a discharge, so it is the correct move to go for, picking up the knockout and KOing Furret. Cetoddle versus Shadow Drifblim in the next game. Drifblim not switching out. The Astonish is adding up quite a bit. They're going to save switch into Quagsire. Quagsire, before it can even make an Aqua Tail, under immediate threat from the Avalanche. Avalanche will connect, and there's going to be the catch onto the Galarian Corsola. Corsola more than happy to tank that Aqua Tail. That's not going to be a problem. Corsola looking for the full farm down. Opponent will get one final Aqua Tail before the Astonish picks up the KO. So Corsola gets to exit with a move, and that's really nice because the Drifblim, they farmed up 4 Astonishes and switched, so they did not have access yet to an Icy Wind. Drifblim can look for the farm down. They get that full farm down, but pay a heavy price as those Astonishes just absolutely shredded through their health bar. Icy Wind bait from the Drifblim in the back. It's going to be Shadow Credilli, and Shadow Credilli is about to get absolutely vaporized by Avalanche. This is a debuffed Avalanche thanks to that Icy Wind, but Cetoddle gets to fire off the back-to-back moves. Avalanche is going to land devastating damage onto that Credilli, and now Cetoddle should just be able to shield up and fully go for that farm down. So Cetoddle, yeah, the opponent realizes they're just getting fully farmed down, so they will resign the match. We see a bit of an interesting lead in the next match, Cetoddle into Shadow Abomasnow. This is a Leafage Abomasnow. Leafage now a Shadow Claw clone. Opponent tries for a catch of an Avalanche onto Jellicent, but they're unsuccessful, and now they get answered with the Galarian Corsola. Corsola will take massive damage from Shadow Ball. Opponent does not go for the bait. Corsola returning fire with the Nightshade, looking to just take the knockout here. Jellicent has other ideas, putting up the shield, getting to another Shadow Ball, and Corsola is going to be no shielding. The Shadow Ball connects. Corsola hangs on very low HP, but will get to the Nightshade. Nightshade will be shielded, and just like that, switch advantage has been lost. The correct play now is to fully sacrifice the Stunfisk, no shield it, and attempt to farm down, and when they bring the Abomasnow, try and snipe with the loaded Avalanche. And it looks like that's the plan. In comes Abomasnow, immediately answered with the Avalanche. Avalanche lands devastating damage. Opponent did not respect the pacing on the Cetoddle, and that's going to cost them all that energy down the drain. In the back is Blastoise. Since the opponent did not respect Cetoddle's pacing and lost all that energy, suddenly all the energy on the Stunfisk that was going to be so useless will actually just end up winning this game. Cetoddle will fire off a second Body Slam, and this should firmly put the Blastoise into a range where Discharge can pick up a knockout. Opponent realizes they cannot get the farm down before Cetoddle makes another Body Slam. Hydro Cannon will pick up the KO, and now Stunfisk is at the back-to-back discharges. Discharge into the Blastoise is going to connect, picking up the KO and taking the win. We move to the next match, leading Cetoddle into Diggersby. Diggersby almost feels like a forgotten relic at this point, as Diggersby, its usage has absolutely cratered this season. Opponent is going to land the Fire Punch, save switch into Corviknight, and Corviknight will be answered with Stunfisk after Cetoddle farms up a massive amount of energy. This could still be a very tricky game, just because the back line is completely useless into the Diggersby. It can't ever really do any kind of meaningful damage, whereas Cetoddle is so valuable, but as Junko, you can't ever really concede switch advantage once the Diggersby gets brought back in. So now Diggersby will get an opportunity to farm up to 100 energy before ever throwing. And that means Diggersby will get to exit with a lot of energy to threaten the Cetoddle. So I do like the decision to just try and get as much Cetoddle energy as possible before sending the Stunfisk into the Corviknight, just because that energy is going to be very valuable. Oh, an aggressive play. This is tough. If the opponent ends up saving the Diggersby and switching out, this could be difficult, but they don't. They fire off the Fire Punch. They lose charge attack priority. They get KO'd by an Avalanche. In the back is Shadow Charizard. Shadow Charizard will go for the Air Cutter, trying to deny Cetoddle's energy. But Cetoddle wants to try and get shields down, so Cetoddle puts up the shield, full sends the Avalanche, and Charizard is forced to burn the shield. Now quick switch into Stunfisk. Stunfisk gets to the discharge. Charizard knew the only way forward was to attempt to farm down. It's just not going to happen. Charizard gets KO'd, and that's going to be a win. The Dream Lead returns in the next match, Cetoddle into Altaria. Opponent safe switches into Gastrodon, and Cetoddle looking to get some big damage with an Avalanche before presumably sending in the Corsola. Avalanche lands, that is massive damage. In comes Corsola. Corsola should be able to Astonish down before the second Water Pulse connects. Opponent is actually on Earth Power, so they've opted for the old moveset. Even if they were on Water Pulse, they wouldn't have made it to a second Water Pulse. They would only get a Body Slam. So this is a very easy no-shield for the Corsola, and now Altaria is in a huge amount of trouble. Altaria cannot farm down, because knowing the Altaria is going to be aligned into an Ice type, you can never shield the Altaria. So the opponent has to do exactly what they do here, which is fire off the Sky Attack, take the knockout, and hope that whatever's in back is going to sweep. It's a Shadow Scizor, and things could get a little bit tricky if Scizor has enough of an energy advantage. That's why a quick switch into the Stunfisk is so important, as Stunfisk will be able to ramp up pressure on Scizor by outpacing it. If Scizor gets too much of an energy lead, this game could end in disaster, but luckily they do not. Now the opponent's only hope is a catch, so gotta be careful about the Mud Bomb. There's the catch attempt onto Altaria, but Cetoddle says no. Cetoddle will go for the Body Slam right before they get to the Sky Attack. Body Slam lands, picking up the knockout. In comes Shadow Scizor. Those bullet punches dealing big damage, but it's time for Cetoddle's revenge. Avalanche is resisted, but it KOs Shadow Scizor and takes home the win. Good lead in the next match, Cetoddle into Togekiss. Now Togekiss will be able to hit back for devastating super effective damage with Aura Sphere, but I imagine in the 2 shields, Cetoddle should be able to emerge victorious, as Cetoddle will have a pacing advantage, being able to get to the Body Slams before the Aura Spheres are reached. So Cetoddle will bait with the Body Slam. That's a great call from the opponent. They end up no shielding, assuming it will be the Body Slam, and now they can force the final shield. There's a switch out into Marowak, but Marowak is immediately under so much pressure. Body Slam bait is shielded. Now here's the Avalanche, and if the opponent double shields, we should see a pivot out and Corsola hitting the field. There it is, right on schedule. Corsola answering the Marowak. Marowak doubling up on Bone Clubs. That's not going to be a problem for Corsola. The only thing that could be tricky is if the switch timer comes up and the Marowak is able to save itself and be a nuisance to the Stunfisk later on. But no catch comes through from the opponent. 4 charge attacks had been thrown, so the switch timer was basically burned, but they choose to stay in and bring in Gastrodon, and they are on double Mud Slap. This could get very tricky. Nightshade lands, Gastrodon does get that farm down, in comes the Stunfisk. Stunfisk will be taking pretty substantial damage from this Gastrodon. Gastrodon just keeps over farming. They have so much loaded energy now. Mud Bomb will connect, and the opponent will now get to go for the Water Pulse. Water Pulse is going to leave a mark. They're actually on Earth Power. It picks up the knockout, and there's the Body Slam loaded as well. Body Slam will be getting Cetoddle deep into the red HP. Cetoddle gets the farm down, exiting with the Body Slam loaded, and somehow, against all odds, will be able to take home the win as Double Slap loses to a team with Stunfisk in the back. Picking up a great lead in the final match, Cetoddle into Regidrago. Opponent safe switches into Corviknight. I love the decision every time there's the Corviknight safe switch to bank a bunch of energy on the Cetoddle before sending in the Stunfisk. The Stunfisk is going to do very, very well in this matchup. Stunfisk already almost at 2 discharges. First discharge will connect onto the Corviknight, getting to discharge number 2 before that second payback is available. Corviknight will get knocked out unless they shield, which they do. So the opponent looking to make a play for alignment. Payback will knock out the Stunfisk. Stunfisk just gonna no shield. There is the payback, and back in comes Cetoddle. Cetoddle, this is only going to be an air cutter if I'm not mistaken, and that's not a problem for Cetoddle. The opponent does get the air cutter boost, but they do not get another move. And in the back, it's Shadow Scizor. Scizor will take a lot of damage from this resisted Avalanche. Avalanche connects, immediately followed by Avalanche number 2. Is Scizor going to burn the final shield? Yes, they are. In comes Corsola, and Corsola should be able to close out this game very comfortably. Corsola's neutral matchups are just absolutely unreal. Scizor is going to go for a Night Slash. They realize there's no win con, and they will resign the match. Oh, it looks like that was not the final battle. This is the final battle, and it's Cetoddle leading into Galarian Corsola. This should be a win for a high-ranked Galarian Corsola in all even shielding scenarios. Cetoddle going for the Avalanche, and it looks like the opponent actually has a subpar Galarian Corsola. This should allow the Cetoddle to very narrowly win the Zero Shield. Power Gem does big damage, but Cetoddle hangs on, making one final Avalanche, and the opponent not having an optimized Corsola backfires as they lose switch advantage. And that's going to be a problem as now it's Stunfisk into Togekiss. They have Marowak in the back, and Marowak, instead of finding the Stunfisk, is going to find the Galarian Corsola. The biggest problem for the opponent is going to be the fact that Corsola just tanks Mud Slaps so comfortably. Corsola should be able to get to the back-to-back Nightshades, and each Astonished that lands gets this Marowak closer and closer to Mud Bomb range. So, Nightshade number 1 is going to be fired at the Marowak. Marowak putting up the shield, and immediately followed by Nightshade number 2. Just like that, in a split second, all shields down. In comes the Stunfisk. Stunfisk shielding. It really needs to get to this Mud Bomb. Marowak stays on the field, throwing 2 and the move, hoping that Mud Bomb will be enough to pick up the KO. Mud Bomb into the Marowak. It looks like it did knock out, and it did. The opponent just closing the app. They realize there is no longer a win con, and they will concede the match. All in all, these are some very fun battles, so many thanks to Junko for sending them in. I do think that this current meta as a whole is pretty weak to ice. Anytime you have a meta where there's top usage Pokemon like Shadow Kanto Marowak, Credilli, and Galarian Moltres or Murkrow, they all share an ice weakness. So it's very tempting to bring an ice type to battle. But ice types can come with their own vulnerabilities. And by that, I'm referring to ice types' defensive resistances, or rather lack thereof. If I'm not mistaken, ice's only defensive resistance is ice, which means, unfortunately, you end up in a lot of matchups where even if you're hitting for super effective damage, you're taking neutral in return. It's part of the risk-reward trade-off with running an ice type. You're probably going to encounter quite a few teams that have a weakness to ice. I'm pretty sure yesterday's video, when I climbed up to 2746 elo, I was actually running a team that was triple weak to ice. And in the matchups where I didn't see ice, which was most games, the team worked amazingly well. But the issue is, even if you're dealing super effective damage a lot of the time, you're also taking super effective damage, or at best case, neutral damage in almost every matchup. So without those defensive resistances, it can make the game quite a bit more challenging. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.